Hey everybody, welcome back, and I know I'm a little late to the party, but I hope you're ready for a ton of news, because today we're going to be going over everything we learned from the 2025 edition of Canon Fodder Live. We saw some new faces, touched on the new Halo Campaign Evolved game, and some new books were announced, which will be having their covers made by some of the Halo community's favorite artists. But let's not waste any more time and dive right in. First and foremost, we were introduced to this year's hosts: Alex Wakeford, franchise writer; Jeff Easterling, franchise story lead; Ed Schlesinger, executive editor for Simon & Schuster; and fellow content creator Austin Murphy from the Jumperscape team. I got the chance to meet and talk with pretty much everybody at various points throughout the weekend, and I have to say that every single one of them were just fantastic people. They were lovely to be around, and you can really tell that they're passionate about telling the story of Halo, whatever their part in it. And I had a really great conversation with both Jeff and Alex about how they approach the further expansion of Halo's story while staying faithful to major events and not downplaying the importance of little interactions between characters. But I also made sure to give them my thanks, because it still blows my mind that these guys are actually watching my videos, and it's just been such an honor having my stuff featured in the better part of a dozen Canon Fodder entries over the last few years. So Jeff, Alex, if you guys are watching, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my voice with the community. And I'm excited to see all the stuff you've got planned, and I'm really looking forward to talking again next year at Halo Fest. And if somehow you're not familiar with the work of Jumperscape, their team produces a high-quality video series called Stories from Waypoint, where they retell Halo Waypoint Chronicles in an audio drama format, as well as host a podcast called The Library, where they talk about Halo lore. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I'll be sure to leave a link to their channel in the description below. Now, moving on to our first real piece of new information. After many years of theories and speculation, we've finally learned the new name for our AI companion from Halo Infinite, with that big reveal being that her new name is Joyeuse. This name was something that they discussed at length at the studio, and it could have went several ways, and while there were people who debated that Cortana would have been the right choice, there were some who argued that the weapon was very much her own character and needed a unique name that delineated her from her predecessor. The name itself is a callback to the literary origins of the name Cortana, which is pulled from the medieval poem Song of Roland, with Cortana being the name of the sword which the story's hero yields, who eventually enters a prolonged sleep until he is needed again. Diving a little further into that text, the sword is actually described as having the inscription, "My name is Cortana, of the same steel and temper as Joyeuse and Durandal." And in the case of Halo, much like these mythical swords Cortana and Joyeuse, both the artificial intelligence Cortana and the weapon were created from the cloned brains of Dr. Catherine Halsey. So when the team sat down to brainstorm which direction to go with her name, they realized it was already right in front of them. The Joyeuse name reveal was, oddly enough, kind of a big moment for longtime and lore-loving fans, as it confirmed a lot of people's suspicions that the writers would stay faithful to Halo's roots, but also pay homage to its connections to the Bungie era of games, as a lot of aspects of Halo's universe were originally inspired by their Marathon franchise, specifically in the case of Durandal being another artificial intelligence who helped the player traverse the game's environments in a similar way that Cortana does. So between that and the fact that her name would now complete the trinity of mythical weapons from the Song of Roland, it all just sort of comes full circle between the two franchises. And I have to mention that when I actually got the chance to get signatures from Steve and Jen a day earlier, Jen had already added Joy to her list of characters alongside Halsey and Cortana that she puts in her signature. And maybe that's lame for me to point out, but to me this was super cool because it quite literally meant that I was one of the first people in the world to have the version of her signature and even have it commemorated in my copy of the Halo Encyclopedia. So this name announcement made history for me in a lot of ways. Moving on to the next segment, we were given a refresher on all of the different entries made to Halo's fiction throughout the 2025 year, and while they talked about them, we actually got to see a collage of all of these entries. The images shown here reference Halo Empty Throne, From Soil to Stars, Tulpomancy, Battle for the Academy Parts 1 and 2, Moonrise over Mombasa, Ghosts in Glass, Ascension on Atropos, Fifth Canticle, and then of course, the yet-to-be-released Halo Edge of Dawn, which should be out, I think, sometime before the end of 2025. And if you guys remember, I was actually super lucky to get an early copy of Halo Empty Throne from Simon & Schuster earlier this year, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers that I'm still on their radar and hoping that they'll consider me again. And if they do, I'll be sure to let you all know what I think as soon as I can. Now, some of these were simply expansions to moments from the universe, or were celebrations on the anniversary of games like Halo Reach, Halo 5, and so on. These stories are kind of their way of trying to make sure that stories are still told, characters aren't completely forgotten, and Halo's story can still remain relevant, until its next mainline release. And I'm not sure how many of you guys watching actually listen or read the novels or these chronicles, but for me as a creator, it's very much appreciated that these guys are still working so hard to keep Halo's universe alive and providing us with new or at least expanded lore as often as they are. And yes, I know there's already over 2 decades of lore to work with, but it's just nice to see some new things introduced to kind of help keep things fresh, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of just covering a lot of the same old things that so many others have done before me. Also, I'm really hoping that Halo Edge of Dawn gives us a better understanding of who survived the attack on the Infinity and what we can expect going into Halo 7. The guys then touched on the big reveal of the upcoming Halo CE remake, Halo Campaign Evolved. Obviously, CE is the game that started everything for Halo, but for these guys as longtime Halo fans, they just actually genuinely seemed so excited about what's to come. You know, whether it be the fact that more people are going to be able to get interested in the lore, which for me, hey, that's a plus, but they also touched on the cutscenes and how they're just going to leave us in awe. And by looking at the few we've already seen, I have no doubt that that's 100% true. And when talking about the lore, Jeff also mentioned how they'll be hiding it, which I suspect means that we'll be getting some new terminals or some gameplay moments that include new dialogue from Cortana, 343 Guilty Spark, or maybe make reference to some other background characters. They also clarified the announcement that there will be 3 new missions, specifying that these will be about a new and separate story from anything we've ever seen, which of course will star the Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson. Obviously, they couldn't really give us much more than that, but this means that whatever the story will be in these new missions, it's going to be something never covered in the games or even the novels. And given that a lot of Halo's history is just not covered, from first contact with the Covenant all the way up to Halo Reach, there's a potential for huge character development for Sergeant Johnson, and we may actually get to see the bromance between these two first begin to take shape. But with that said, they mentioned that we'll actually get to hear more information on these missions at a later date. Our next segment was all about the upcoming Chronicles from Waypoint book, which, as the name suggests, is a collection of the past few years of Halo Waypoint chronicles, intel items, and story vignettes. And in total, this comes out to over 30 stories, which take place all over the Halo universe. Now, the cover art for the book is actually made by Levi Offmeyer, the creator of the fan-made comic Fistful of Arrows, which is the unofficial canon explanation for June's escape during the invasion of Reach. But apparently when they sent this collection over to Ed Schlesinger at Simon & Schuster, it came out to over 600 manuscript pages, so this is definitely going to be a hefty new addition to my shelf. And in line with that collection of stories, we also got a teaser in the form of another collage of images, but these aren't exactly new images, they just represent the general gist of what these stories are supposed to be about. And I've actually got a few predictions, so in order, let me just give you my rundown on what stories I think we'll be getting. Commander Agrina, whether it be her backstory or even an update on the Academy's survivors following the battle for the Academy, someone on Zeta Halo, possibly something to do with stranded Marines or maybe even banished forces, the Executors or the Created in general, Captain Lasky, potentially revealing how he survived the fall of the Infinity and maybe even detailing his whereabouts during Halo Infinite's events, Doizak's survivors post-destruction of the world. This could possibly be about clans turning to the Banished, as they really have no other options to survive. This one here I think is going to be about Arturo Bustamante's adventures, which if you don't remember, he was featured in one of the Canon Fodders, Canon Fodder if you will, where he talked about some of his experiences in the food that he had tried throughout the galaxy. So maybe this could be more of a joke-oriented entry as well, maybe even covering the MOA repopulation efforts on Reach or something else. I don't know, it could even just be another plug for the Halo cookbook, who knows. This one here I think is a reference to the Tantalus 10,000 race, which is the galaxy-renowned buggy race mentioned in the Ghost of Reach novel, and may even follow the early life of Bella Dietzel, who was the famous racer who, spoilers, died in the novel while helping out Blue Team. And this last one here, I kind of have no idea what it's about. It could be something about maybe Ilsa Zane and her followers, maybe the Venetian mercenary super soldiers, or maybe it's just something Banished related due to the color of the emblem. I don't know, no clue. Either way, some of these predictions may be close, spot on, or totally wrong, but hey, who knows? I'm open to other answers, so let me know what you guys think as well. We also learned that they're planning to release a Master Chief Omnibus book, which will be a re-release of the 3 novels, The Fall of Reach, The Flood, and First Strike. The important thing here is that they will be updated with new supplementary materials, art, and some up-to-date corrections from some of the older editions. And just to close on this, because there really wasn't much else to it, they revealed that none other than Isaac Hannaford, a well-known artist who has been a long-standing presence in the Halo catalog, will be making the cover art for this collection. So that's pretty awesome, and I'm looking forward to using it in future videos. And last but not least, our final announcement during the panel was for a new Flood horror novel titled Halo: Parasite's Wake, which will feature none other than Staff Sergeant Marvin Mabudo in the time leading up to the discovery of Installation 04 and following the Pillar of Autumn's descent onto the soon-to-be flood-infested Ringworld. For those who might not know, Marvin Mabudo was actually the Marine originally chosen by 343 Guilty Spark to try and retrieve the Index, before he was eventually killed by the Flood, and then later discovered by the Master Chief when he was sent there with the same objective. He is canonically a badass, and I hope that his character may even make a proper appearance in the upcoming Halo Campaign Evolved remake, however they want to go about that. Not too much else was divulged about the story other than that it's going to feature Mabudo trying to lead a group of survivors who are described as deserters, drunk and disorderly, and even murderers, so that's pretty crazy, but it's actually being written by the author Tim Leben, someone who I'm not familiar with, but is known as a New York Times bestseller and is widely renowned when it comes to horror and sci-fi thrillers. His work ranges from Star Wars, the Alien franchise, and he even wrote a book for the cult classic TV series Firefly. The people at Halo Studios feel like he definitely understands the intricacies and unique aspects of the Halo universe, so it seems like we're going to be in good hands. And as seems to be a running theme with this year's panel, they announced that the beloved and probably the most iconic artist in the Halo community, Rythaze, will be making the cover art for this novel, whose art you have definitely seen before, because I and literally every other Halo content creator has used it probably a million times over the years. I'm pretty interested in seeing what's in store for us here, and I look forward to hearing more about Mabudo's journey, and I have no doubt that the cover is going to look absolutely amazing. And with that, we've covered all the big information when it comes to the 2025 edition of Canon Fodder Live. And while many of us are hyper-focused on the future of Halo's story, this year's panel was focused more on the expansion of Halo's story as we know it. But that's not to say that we don't have more info coming soon, as Halo Edge of Dawn is really only a month away. And again, I apologize for the delay on this video because as soon as I got back from HCS Worlds, I had to hit the ground running with work and trying to get caught up on real life stuff. So thank you all for your patience, and I really hope that if you still had any questions regarding any of this news or information, this video helped answer them. I also think that this video is probably going to round out my coverage of the event's news and the demo for Halo Campaign Evolved. But as we look forward to 2026, I'm going to try and cover any of the other new information leading up to the game's release, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Otherwise, you guys know the drill. Please like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and be sure to leave me a comment on your thoughts about all of this new information. But that's it for today, so I'll see you in the next video.